Part 19. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 181. The level increasing elemental fluctuations ended, but Gretel still didn't come out. Constructing new magic in the core of meditation, he tossed it back and forth like a new toy. The height of the peak and trough is higher. A little higher. Well, the output power is not enough, and the intensity of the ultrasonic wave cannot be increased, then lower it. A little lower, it won't work. The casting accuracy is not enough, and it can't be controlled any lower. And then there's the wave frequency. The frequency is increased, very good, the feedback accuracy is improved, and the detection distance is shortened. It is so convenient to imprint spell models in the meditation core, and you can actually adjust the frequency manually. Lower the frequency a little bit, lower, lower, lower. Squeak. An extremely faint shrill scream. Oops, the frequency has dropped too much, to the range acceptable to human ears. Gretel sweated. He didn't dare to go any further into the infrasonic range, so he could only memorize a few sets of the most useful data, thinking that he would find a way to measure how many megahertz it was in the future. Outside the room, Elderwood and Master Tolga looked at each other. What is this kid doing? I don't know, how about using his new magic? Probably. In any case, the breath of life in the guest room is still quite stable and full of vitality. The difficulty was over and nothing happened. Elderwood shrugged his shoulders and finally dragged Master Tolga away. They went back to their respective rooms to do whatever they needed to do. The barbarian was left holding a big stick and guarding the door with a loyal look on his face. He had the aura of one man guarding the gate and no one could stop him. Anyway, it doesn't matter if you stay up all night for your physics career. The same cannot be said for spellcasters. Mages need to meditate and priests need to pray. These are all tasks that must be done every day, and they must also ensure 8 hours of sleep. If you don't sleep enough, you won't be able to use your magic tomorrow. In the guest room, Gretel had enough trouble with ultrasonic frequencies and began to experiment with other ideas. Can ultrasonic waves be emitted in a concentrated beam? Can it be emitted from several directions at the same time to facilitate the determination of the specific situation of a certain part? Can it generate high heat instantly and ablate something at a specific point? If it can be done, there will be a hypho knife or something like that. Can. Cast once, cast again, cast again. It wasn't until all the magic power left today was exhausted that Gretel yawned and opened his eyes with satisfaction. His eyes fell on the small table beside the bed. His eyes instantly went straight and he let out a fierce scream. Ah! My gold coins! Beside the corner of the table, the little monster I got today is squatting at the mouth of the bell, and his figure has thinned into a wisp of blue smoke. Gretel was heartbroken. It looks like the little monster's appearance time has expired. If he wants to use it in the future, he has to recharge it himself. He was so depressed that he fell asleep. The next day he got up earlier than anyone else. When Elderwood got up, he saw Gretel sitting in the morning light, playing with the new bell he got yesterday. He closed his eyes and clutched the bell, with that concentrated look that showed that he was leaving his own mental mark. Elderwood immediately stopped and watched from a distance, fearing to be disturbed. After a while, Greet opened his eyes, raised the bell in front of him, pointed the opening at himself, and took a deep breath. Time is money, my friend. The voice had a strange accent, and it was obviously a very serious statement, but Elderwood always felt that something was strange about it. Whoosh, a small wisp of blue smoke floated out slowly, condensing into shape for a long time. However, Gretel's face looked very satisfied. He closed his eyes for a while and spoke again. Mother Earth is fooling you. The tone of this sentence is even stranger. If you don't understand clearly, what is Mother Earth? A small offshoot of deistic beliefs? With a whoosh, Lanyan took it back again. Obviously this was the command to take back the password. Gretel played back and forth twice, turned around and saw Elderwood, and quickly stood up. Elder. Well, you were successfully promoted yesterday. Are you a magician who has reached the second level? Well done. Elderwood walked forward with a cheerful face. By the way, I was busy yesterday and didn't talk in detail yet. You specially, what are you doing here? Are you a level 2 priest? Are you here to learn new magic? Of course, one has to learn magical arts, but Gret looked around and found that the paper had been left in Elderwood's hands before, so he had to tell the story of how he submitted it to the Magic Council for review and received a low score. That's the thing. It was verified yesterday that this magic is of great benefit to medical diagnosis, but it needs to be supplemented with a lot of information. I thought about it, and I can only ask all the priests to help me and see if the patient has to draw a meditation picture once to complete this task. I am not familiar with the place in Nevis, I don't know many pastors, and there is no place to find patients. I can only ask the elder to find a solution. Well, this is a good thing, Elderwood smiled. You are willing to teach us your original magic. The old man owes you a big favor. Don't worry about the rest, leave it to me, I will do it. You said you want to draw a meditation picture. It is a person who is not sick. Who is sick everyone has to paint, right? Greet nodded repeatedly. Absolutely. I will read it first, and then memorize it for them after reading the painting, and then they will look at it themselves. This is how they learn when they study medicine. First, physiology and embryology, explaining what a normal person looks like, and then progressing to pathology and disease, telling you what will happen if you get sick. The same is true for situational solutions and system solutions. We must first teach the normal situation, and then let you remember 1, 2, or even dozens of abnormalities. Of course, whether the general teacher I met in the department explanation class is normal or abnormal, that's up to chance. Gretel became more and more sad. Even he himself had to see dozens of people who were not sick, men, women, young adults, old people, children, before the things he drew could barely have any commonality. Then, there are dozens of pastors in Elderwood's area, and they want everyone to be familiar with B ultrasound. It would take at least 1,000 people to use it. If this were a previous life, it wouldn't be a problem at all. A large number of films can be retrieved from the databases of major hospitals. It is really not possible to go to the physical examination center and wait for a few days. The physical examination center's traffic for one day is enough. Can it be here? This piece of shit that doesn't even have the concept of a physical examination? Go all over the streets to arrest people and tell them, lie down, lift up your clothes, let me apply a layer of oil on your belly, and use magic to take a look. Just thinking about it in his mind, Gretel felt that the scene was simply too horrible to watch. Elderwood lowered his head and thought. It's easy for the priests in the cult to walk around the villages and farms and find a few patients. But, if you want to get hundreds of normal people to visit with magic, men may be able to, but women. It's more difficult for women, like Miss Iris this time. If he and Tolga hadn't known each other for many years and were accompanied by female companions, Gretel probably wouldn't have been able to get treatment. Let me figure this out, a clear voice suddenly sounded from behind the tree. The female knight Selena stepped out, nodded politely to Elderwood, and introduced herself. Elderwood, Lord Nordmark. If you two need it, you can come to my territory. I will gather the soldiers, castle servants, and farmers together. It is still easy to get thousands of people. If the disease happens to be detected, just could you please treat me? The cost of releasing the magic will be borne by my house. Thanks to my name Siwang for the reward of 600 starting coins. Thanks to @1914 for the 100 starting coins reward. Please subscribe, Ask for monthly tickets, please recommend votes. Asking for a book review. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 182. Home Physical Examination? Group Physical Examination at the unit? Gretel was happy. Their hospitals have done this kind of work before, either in relatively large special units, such as sanatoriums, or in rural areas to provide warmth. Unexpectedly, I could try another world again. What items should I check? What equipment do I need to prepare? By the way, what is the identity of this female knight? She started talking about my castle and my territory. Does she have a territory in her own name? This is much higher than having a mine. Elderwood saw his gaze and was also happy. He looked at Greet's surprised look, then at the upright female knight with a sword on her waist. Her old eyes narrowed slightly, and she laughed. Why, you don't know who she is? This is Lady Roche, the eldest daughter of the Earl of Inverness. Her territory covers hundreds of miles from Greenfield Wood to Moriston. By the way, which castle shall we go to? The last sentence was said to Selina. The female knight answered without thinking. Augustus Castle. It's bigger there and it's easier to get there by water. Elder, when do you want to come over? Send a message and I'll send a boat to pick you up. Greet, who had just opened a biological laboratory in Neva City and felt like a rich man, was silent and dared not speak. It sounds like he has more than one castle under his name, so you can choose one. However, Elderwood was quite familiar with the Baroness and was not moved at all when he heard such words. The old man just smiled and said, Selina, you've spent a lot of money. Spending money is really spending money. Casting spells is not without cost. For example, when the priests of the Temple of the Spring Goddess treat people, their prices are clearly marked according to the level of the healing spell. A first-level divine spell costs 50 gold coins, a second-level divine spell costs 500 gold coins, and so on. Those who are unfamiliar will be given money first before casting spells, those who are familiar will be given money after releasing the magic, and those who are particularly familiar can be settled on a monthly or quarterly basis, as well as discounts. Of course, this level of familiarity also depends on how high your title is, how much money you have donated to the temple over the years, how many people in your family are in the temple, etc. In short, everyone knows that VIP discounts are just the wool coming from the sheep. The Order of the God of Nature often reduces treatment costs for the poor. If Elderwood took the sect members and took the initiative to go to the countryside and conduct inspections in each village, he probably would not receive a penny, and he might even have to repay the money. But now, Selina said that she would bear the cost of treatment, which is almost like giving money to the cult. Even if it is discounted in half, and then discounted in half, this is by no means a small amount of money. So generous? The old man looked at Greet and Selina, and couldn't help but want to laugh. The female knight answered openly, on the way here yesterday, Master Tolga intercepted us and summoned the ice element. If he hadn't helped me, I would have been seriously injured at least. Having said this, he smiled at Gretel. I was so busy yesterday that I didn't have time to thank you. And I also want to thank you for Iris. So this is a thank you. I'm too embarrassed to just give the money away, so I just use the treatment fees to transfer it? Do not. I have no problem giving you money directly. What I need now is money. But this treatment fee can benefit the public, which is actually quite good. Greet smiled back at her, indicating that she accepted the favor. Elderwood nodded, then it's settled. After I learn this spell and teach it to others, I will make an appointment to give you the news. Little Greet, I finished reading the paper yesterday. There are a few things that are not quite right. If you understand, please tell me. An old man and a young man squatted to the side and muttered. After Master Tolga saw his daughter come out, he was about to express his solemn thanks to Greet when he glanced at her from a distance and automatically avoided it. It would be too shameful to learn magic secretly. Since this spell has been submitted to the Magic Council, he can legally redeem it. He continued to turn around and look for his daughter, taking stock of his belongings and how he could repay the other party for saving his daughter. He withstood the ice giant once and treated him once, which was a full 2 times. That little girl Selena is generous enough with her actions, I must not be stingy than her. Well, what should I give? Gold. Magic item. Real. Magic wand? Or, this child came to the headquarters from a remote area to study. What does he need urgently? Parliament's contribution points? A chance to stay? Join a mage tower? By the way, since it was proven that my daughter was not pregnant, I was in the wrong by blocking her all the way yesterday. As for Selena, she should also go and apologize. How to compensate her? Give me a magic item. Or a suit of enchanted armor. Master Tolga took stock of his family's assets and walked slowly. After wandering around, they saw Greet and Elderwood squatting under a tree, arms touching arms and shoulders touching shoulders. Greet put both hands on the ground, almost lying in front of a rabbit, and muttered. No. I still can't feel what it is thinking. Why can't you feel it? Elderwood looked at him angrily, communicating with animals. It's the most basic skill for a servant of the god of nature. A level 1 priest can learn anything, and some qualifications are particularly good. Yes, you started at the apprenticeship stage. How did Erwin accept you? This belief of mine is fake t. Speaking of which, there is not much difference in the apprenticeship spells between the priests and magicians of the god of nature. Detect poison, detect magic, light, spark, read magic, many spells are interoperable. But at the level 1 priest stage, the priest of the god of nature has many special skills. Soothe animals, detect animals and plants, become invisible to animals, talk to animals, summon allies. These magical arts all have a common foundation: understanding nature, getting close to nature, and resonating with nature. Gretel has a good grasp of theoretical knowledge and can recite divine spells smoothly, but when it comes to casting spells, can't you even feel its panic? Elderwood almost vomited blood. Rabbit, one of the animals that the priest of the god of nature has to deal with the most when walking in the wild. Now it is pressed to the ground with its 4 paws pointing upward. Let me tell you. You can't feel it getting nervous. I can feel its heartbeat is very fast. Gretel quickly retracted his fingers from the rabbit's neck. This is a rabbit. Not a human being. I can still communicate with him if he is a human, but if he is a rabbit, the only way for me and the rabbit to communicate is through experiments. Elderwood sighed helplessly. He patted the ground, causing a few long grasses to sprout from the mud, and tied the rabbit up firmly. Come on, do the most basic thing of promoting vegetation and show it to me. No, it won't, otherwise, Elder, could you show me the magic scroll? Gretel is also desperate. Divine magic is not like magic. For magic, he remembers the structure of the spell, outlines it with mental power when using it, and mobilizes the magic power. It comes out naturally. Divine arts are different. The magical arts he has learned so far are basically healing series. He didn't know how he learned them. Other magic? Trying to think in your mind, grow this grass for me? No matter how hard you think, the other party didn't respond. He dug a hole, loosened the soil, planted seeds and watered them, but the grass seeds still refused to give him face. He chanted for a long time, but not a single grain grew. He even tried soybeans. At the end of the trial, the soybeans sprouted after being soaked for several days. Elderwood hid his face and sighed. Erwin really entrusted him with a good student. He was dazzled by all the unheard of healing methods. However, the traditional skills of the priest of the god of nature. I don't even expect him to be able to fight or run. Why are he so ignorant of these special magical skills? The foundation of divine magic is strong prayer, he sighed, starting from the most basic part, and explained the essence of divine magic to Gretel. Convey your strongest and purest wishes to the gods, pray for the gods to respond, and do things that mortals cannot accomplish. The spring water temple believes in their goddess, the Ares temple believes in the god of war, and we believe in the omnipresent power of nature. Plants, animals, even hills, rivers, and wilderness are all part of nature, so as long as we believe in nature, they will definitely respond to our call. That's it? I have never believed in nature. What I believe in has always been to save lives and heal the wounded, which is the responsibility of health and life. Gretel did not dare to speak. The old man stroked the swaying weeds, bent down again, pressed his fingers on the ground, and looked at him with scorching eyes. Let me ask you, what does nature mean to you? Ecological balance. Greet swallowed back these words in horror. Elderwood's expression turned to satisfaction. Don't dare to answer? That's right. Nature is great and sublime, and it's worth your whole life to feel and be in awe. Now tell me, why do you want to learn to grow vegetation? 4. Gretel's eyes wandered. He saw Elderwood's fingers from the small bag on his waist, and then saw the grass blades on his fingertips. In order to, when you need a tube, just induce labor and it will be there. Elderwood almost lost his temper. What the hell is a pipe? The servants of the god of nature spawn vegetation, either to aid in combat, to ward off enemies, or to harvest flowers, herbs, fruits, and the like. What is a tube? Does your treatment require so many tubes? He simply grabbed a handful of grass seeds, thought about it, and threw most of them back, leaving only a handful to greet. Then try it. Pray according to your needs. Does the void give birth? Shouldn't it be buried in the soil and then rely on the power of the earth to make it grow? Greet was stunned for a moment, but he still stretched out his hands to hold the grass seeds, put the thumb and index finger of his right hand together and picked up one. Close your eyes slightly and imagine silently. I need a tube, soft material, high surface finish, non-irritating, 12F specification, 400 mm long, shape. He concentrated on sketching it in his mind. With a flick of his fingertips, green hollow vines grew in the wind. Elderwood was stunned. No. Why does this pipe of yours still have a ball on one end? Guess what Gretel gave birth to? Thanks to my name Siwang for the 500 starting coins reward. Thanks to @03141043WLW for tipping 500 starting coins. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, please review books. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 183. Greet is very satisfied with the direction of his research. In medicine, there are too many places where various tubes are used. Those that go from above include nasogastric tubes, gastric tubes, endotracheal intubations, gastroscopes, and bronchoscopes. Those that go from below include urethral catheters, anal canals, gastroscopes, and enteroscopes. Those that are inserted into wounds, such as those placed during the healing of various wounds, drainage tubes, such as drainage tubes after thoracotomy and abdominal puncture. Another example is infusion catheters, hemodialysis catheters, angiography catheters, catheters for interventional therapy. In the past, Greet didn't have silicone, latex, or medical plastic, so it couldn't make various tubes. Now that he has mastered the skill of promoting plant growth, he can even rub it with his own hands. In my mind, a large area of the available part of the healing skill tree lit up. Although he is still not good at infusions, mainly because he cannot produce liquids that are pure enough and guaranteed to be sterile, but when the patient is suffocated and needs a tracheal intubation, or is unconscious and cannot eat, he needs a nasogastric tube. It's no longer difficult for him. Gretel's eyes were bright and full of excitement, and he smiled happily at Elderwood. Elderwood looked at him confused. What on earth did you give birth to? He looked down at the vine again. If Gretel only produced a hollow tube, he wouldn't be so surprised. After all, he had given birth twice before. One time it was inserted into the stomach, and the other time it was simply inserted into the intestines. They both played a role that cannot be ignored, and the second time the effect was particularly immediate. The question is, what is this in Greet's hand? The overall thickness is uniform, and the diameter is about half the size of a small fingernail. The end held in the hand is bifurcated, and the two ends after the bifurcation are extremely swollen, almost as long and thick as the little finger. A round ball swelled out near the end of the other end. Moving forward, the top did not open, but instead closed into a round drop shape. On the contrary, there are two symmetrical holes near the end about the length of a fingernail. They are long and rice-shaped, and you can see from one side to the other without any difficulty. Elderwood thought about it, but he couldn't figure out what it was. Looking at Greet again, he has raised the tube in his hand to his mouth, pinched the end of one branch of the Y-shape, and blew hard into the other branch. After blowing and blowing, the slightly deflated ball gradually expanded, and then exploded with a pop sound. Exploded. How old are you for blowing up balloons? Elderwood shook his head. Gretel lowered his arms in annoyance and pursed his lips. He initially wanted to make the simplest ordinary single-lumen urinary catheter. As he was doing it, he decided to challenge his control and made a double-lumen single-balloon urinary catheter. Looking at it now, it was finally done, but the air bag was not strong enough and it exploded before being inflated much. This is not possible. The material was not strong enough. If it exploded during clinical application, he would not dare to think about the troubles that would follow. Greet touched the vine in his hand again. The fingertips feel prickly and not smooth enough at all. Not to mention not as good as silicone rubber and natural latex, it can't even keep up with the most basic PVC pipes. I can't use this thing, the foreign body feeling is too strong. Elder, why did this vine grow? Is it hairy on the outside? The poles that grow from the grass seeds you used are already hairy. Elderwood looked at him speechlessly. How did this child learn common sense? Knowing plants, observing animals, and understanding nature are all basic lessons. Servers of the God of Nature are already familiar with them before becoming a priest's apprentice. Why haven't you started yet when you've reached the level 2 priest? Can't you tell what kind of grass seeds they are? Then, what if I want it to be smoother? Change seeds. Elderwood took Gretel to the back room and stood in front of a large cabinet. The design idea of the cabinet is exactly the same as the product cabinet in the magic materials store, that is to say, it is exactly the same as the medicine cabinet in the Chinese medicine store. Elderwood casually opened a drawer, and when Gretel stretched his head to take a look, he felt dizzy. The drawers, which are 7 to 8 inches wide, 3 to 4 inches high, and more than a foot deep, are divided into 3 compartments in the drugstore, but Elderwood has about 10 compartments here. There are plant seeds lying in every cell. If you glance over, there is nothing the same. There are 7 or 8 pieces scattered here and there, and some are piled up to the point where they are about to pop up in the grid. There are those the size of a pinhead that can fly when you blow a breath, there are the ones the size of a soybean, or even the size of a thumb. Some have smooth surfaces, some have pitted surfaces, and some have fluff or even pods. Some are dark black, some are black and white, and some are colorful and green. Worse, there are no labels. Not a scrap of paper. Elder. Greet's face turned pale. He opened a drawer, but he didn't recognize it. He opened another drawer, but he still didn't recognize it. At least there was something he recognized in the third drawer. It should be an acorn, which has a strong presence in the animated movie Ice Age. The fourth drawer, there is a drawer, and I don't recognize anything. I am a clinical major in medicine. I'm not a major in agricultural botany. Such a big cabinet has 56 drawers spread across the board. It is conservatively estimated to have hundreds of compartments. Each compartment contains a type of seed. Elder, these seeds, which one is which? Why aren't they even named? No need to stick it. You can ask it yourself. Only if you can communicate with it can you use it. If you can't communicate with it, it's useless if you take it. Greed. Can't communicate. If you can't communicate, just give it a try. Greed looked at Elderwood longingly, and Elderwood gestured to him, indicating take it as you please, just take it. At present, it has been spawned once, and the consumption is about the same as a second-level spell. If you try it 5 times a day, it will take about 100 days, and you are done trying it. 100 days is 100 days. Gretel suddenly became proud. He asked the barbarian to drag him over to the backpack, and without any courtesy, he took 10 pills from this compartment and 8 pills from that compartment. There are more seeds in this grid, grab a lot. You just use this bag to carry things. The old magician suddenly walked in. He glanced at the backpack in Gretel's hand, and his face was full of words. It was half a man tall, made of leather and coarse cloth, and attached to a thick belt underneath. Because it is often placed on the ground, it looks a little dirty. In short, ordinary adventurers, warriors, and rangers can still see this kind of thing on their backs, but mages can still see it when they carry. It really ruins the image. Well, I usually don't carry this thing on my back. This backpack was designed by Greed himself, imitating the structure of a mountaineering bag. When traveling for short distances, the barbarian carries it. When traveling for long distances, the barbarian needs to carry a big bag, and he can carry it himself. I usually use this fanny pack. How much can such a small pocket carry? Master Tolga raised his eyebrows again. Without waiting for Greed to protest, he waved his sleeves and lightly threw a small cloth bag over. Dimensional bag. It's given to you. New collections have dropped off a cliff in the past few days, and I can't understand the data. What happened? Routinely asking for subscriptions, asking for monthly tickets, asking for recommendation votes, asking for book reviews. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 184. Dimensional bag? Gretel was stunned for a moment. The little cloth bag had been blown by the wind, swaying, and floated in front of him. He caught it in a hurry and wanted to hand it back. How can this be so embarrassing? Take it if it's given to you. Elderwood raised his hand to stop him. After you cured his daughter, is it not worth a dimensional bag? The elders had said so, so Greed had no choice but to accept it. He lowered his head and looked at the dimensional bag in his hand. It was a light, palm-sized small bag. At first glance, it looked gray and inconspicuous. However, upon closer inspection, it turned out that it was neither silk nor linen, nor cloth, nor leather, and had a silver-gray brilliance flowing silently. He held it in his hand and waited, a little dazed. Is treatment so expensive? A B ultrasound, and should charge 1/3? And this dimensional bag is worth a lot of money. When Gretel first arrived in Nevis, he went to a magic item shop to ask about the price. The smallest one with a capacity of 30 cubic feet cost 2,500 gold coins. 20 times the total liquidity he had at that time. 1,000, no, 300 yuan, 2,500 gold coins. This dimensional bag is for me to go out for short distances. It can't hold much. It can only hold 70 cubic feet and 500 pounds of stuff. The old magician's voice drifted over. Remember not to exceed the size or weight, and don't let it be scratched by sharp objects. Otherwise, the dimensional bag will be damaged and the contents inside will be lost, making it impossible to take out anything. Gretel quickly thanked him. 70 cubic feet? 500 pounds. Very good. His surgical instrument box, his alchemy equipment, and his commonly used medicines can be carried on your body and taken with you at any time. I'm no longer afraid of someone getting hurt and not taking advantage of me. Security add 1, add 10,086. Gretel raised his head and looked at Master Tolga with gratitude. The dimensional bag given by the master is one step larger than the basic one, and the market price is a full 5,000 gold coins. Gretel had inquired before, and based on the income of a level 2 mage at the Magic Council headquarters, he could probably afford it if he saved up 3 to 5 years without eating or drinking. By the way, can his box fit such a small bag? Greet opened the bag curiously. The 5 centimeters wide small bag was pulled by his hands and quickly opened to both sides. 10 centimeters, 20 centimeters, 30 centimeter. 1 foot, 2 feet. I can't pull it anymore. Bernard shared his master's worries and worked conscientiously, reaching out to help pull. Elderwood quickly stopped. Stop. We have reached the limit. Gretel, remember, the dimensional bag is only so wide, don't force things into it. Greetino kept saying. Master Tolga smiled beside him and said, by the way, I have one more thing to ask you. You said before that you were attending a training class. Do you plan to stay? Have you decided where to go? Your suggestion is dash. Are you willing to join our All Things Are One school? We focus on the transformation system. To the left of the main mage tower on the top of the mountain, the mage tower that spirals upward like a slender conch is hosted by our school. I am currently a level 13 magician. On the 15th floor of that tower, I have my own laboratory. If you are willing to join, I can personally accept you as a disciple. Change system. Greet recalled it quickly. There is insufficient information on the mage tower, but he has been in the training class these days and has a relatively systematic understanding of various schools and categories of spells. The characteristic of the transformation system is to change the properties of objects and living things. It starts from the magic hand and repair techniques, and is divided into several branches: destruction, blessing, and change, all the way up. Each path has very powerful representative spells. For example, when it comes to destroying branches, at level 6, the famous dissociation technique appears. A flash of green light, Avidana the big melon, ah no, a flash of green light, everything turned into powder. To deal with powerful enemies, there is also the time stop that kills gods when God blocks it, and kills Buddha when Buddha blocks it. It is so domineering that it can't be more domineering by forcing the basic rules of the universe. The lethality is also terrifying enough. No one else can move but you can. Take out a knife and poke it gently, and it will kill you. For example, if you change the branch, half of the alchemists come from this branch. Making magic carpets, dimensional bags, secret chests, golems, activated golems, alchemy golems, all are the characteristics of this branch. Known as the richest group of mages, the only problem is that it costs a lot of money in the early stage. But it's fun later on. There are 3 branches of the mage system that claim to be able to form an army by one person: the otherworldly summoning of the conjuration system, the sea of death bones of the necromantic system, and then, the golem army of the transformation system. Another example is the blessing branch. This branch can be regarded as the branch with the strongest melee capabilities among magicians. If you see a magician throw down his staff, get yourself a bunch of power of the bull, toughness of the bear, lightness of the cat, maybe another giant transformation or something like that, Rush up to him. Fight hand to hand with someone. No need to ask, he must be the guy from the transformation department. All in all, a very powerful and interesting faction. Being able to be directly accepted as a disciple by a level 13 great magician, and being able to work in the assistant magic tower on the top of the mountain, was also a great blessing for Gretel, who was unfamiliar with the place and was only a level 2 magician. It can be said that among the students in the training class, including family background, only 1/10 of them are so lucky. However, Greet thought for a moment and shook her head. He straightened his robes and bowed deeply. Thank you very much for your consideration. However, I am personally more interested in the plasticity faction and the conjuration faction. Da Vinci robots and manipulators, although these things are very good, they are not what he urgently needs. On the other hand, many magics in the plasticity and conjuration systems are very useful to him. For example, if he can push freeze ray to the advanced level, he can directly liquefy the air and produce pure oxygen in large quantities. There is also an electrocardiogram. NMR. These things do not rely on the conjuration system and the evocation system. Do they rely on the transformation system? What's so good about those two factions? Master Tolga frowned. One only knows how to throw fireballs, and the other memorizes incantations all day long until his head is dizzy. Boy, come to our transformation department. There are many interesting things in the transformation department. Greet smiled and said nothing. The old magician stared at him for a long time and sighed. Okay, it's up to you. Young people always like powerful magic, and the conjuration system also has medical spells, which are more suitable for you. Hey, kid, if you change your mind anytime, come to me at any time. Transformation Tower Floor 15, remember. Thank you for your consideration. Greet thanked him again. Elderwood watched the whole scene from the side. When the old magician walked away, Gretel started collecting seeds again, and then waved casually. Take it. With a crash, all the drawers popped open at the same time, and hundreds of seeds formed a long dragon and swept out. Gretel hurriedly opened the mouth of the dimensional bag. Elderwood controlled the seeds to enter the dimensional bag and said seriously. This training class of the Magic Council is a very good opportunity. I didn't plan to disturb you originally. But since you want to collect information, I have another way. There is a religious order station in the city, and priests are stationed on rotation all year round to treat surrounding residents. I'll write a letter and you can go there and get a table and sit there the next day. By the way, the priests stationed there, did you teach them this spell? Very good. Greet was overjoyed. Our little Gretel is about to start her medical career again. What should I write about the next case? What do you want to see? Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 185. Greet was sitting on the table next to the wall on the first floor of the treatment center, playing with a small bag of seeds in his hand, as if in a daze. A patient rushed in, not for him. The second patient rushed in, not looking for him either. The third patient simply kicked and rushed upstairs. This situation is exactly the same as when a new doctor has just started his consultation and is crowded. What's even worse than the hospital environment is that the entire two-story building is filled with a vague fishy smell. Yes, the healing center of the Order of the God of Nature is located on the edge of Nevis, near the dock area. There is a shipping dock on one side and a fishing dock on the other, and the treatment center is right in the middle. As for the passenger terminal, it is at the end of the cargo terminal, at least 2 miles away from the treatment center. Although it is on the edge of the city, because the city of Nevis is located at the end of the bay and is shaped like a U, the treatment center is not far from Bridge Magic Academy. Greet walks half an hour from school every day after class. It can be said that he has more money, less things to do and is close to home. It is the first dream of young people to go to work. So even if there are no patients for the time being, Gretel is not in a hurry. With empty eyes, he looked out the window and silently held a seed in his hand, to induce birth. Give birth. Grow hollow tubes for me. Ah, what grows from this seed is a tough dark brown wooden tube. Maybe it can be used as a sputum suction tube, but definitely not as an infusion tube. Greet shook the wooden tube gently, separated a piece, and threw it into the small glass petri dish on the right. After writing the record, he sealed it into a separate small bag together with the unused seeds and fragments of the wooden pipe, and stuffed it back into the dimensional bag. Take out a new seed, concentrate your mind, and prepare to continue cultivating it. Your Excellency Pastor, my leg fell, it hurts. A patient is coming. Gretel raised his eyes and saw a 15 or 16-year-old magic apprentice, limping up the steps with a book box on his back. The robe was covered with dust, and there was even some sand and gravel embedded in the lower half. There was dust on his face and hands. He looked around and saw that there were patients in front of other priests, so he had to run to greet. Sit across the table, Gretel answered with great skill. He opened the record book and turned to the first blank page. Name? Age? Occupation? Where do you feel uncomfortable? Stephen Downey, Mage Apprentice. 16 years old, fell down and sprained his foot. Sit tight. Greet wrote it down, walked around to the opposite side, and knelt down to check. Pressing, kneading, turning, and taking a photo with detection magic, I came to the conclusion. The ankle is sprained, the muscles and ligaments are a little strained, but the bones are fine. I go home and apply cold compresses for 1 day, then start applying hot compresses at this time the next day, and just rest for a few days. But there will be a lecture by the master tomorrow, Donnie said anxiously. Can it be cured immediately? I'm sorry to trouble you. You need magical treatment? You have a sprain, just treat minor injuries, Michelle. How do you charge for treatment of minor injuries? The accountant of the treatment center, or accountant, or whatever, immediately rushed over and bowed slightly in front of the patient. Treat minor injuries. The favor is 5 gold coins. Oh, you are a mage apprentice, and the Magic Council has a relationship with us. As per the agreement, you only need to pay 10%. 5 silver coins. Once the payment is completed, we will treat you immediately. The young apprentice looked distressed at first, then breathed a sigh of relief and immediately took out his wallet. Hand over the money with one hand and the healing technique with the other. In a moment, warm white light penetrates into the ankle, the pain stops immediately and the swelling disappears. Donnie stood on tiptoe and turned forward and backward, then took 2 more steps and said in surprise. It's all good. Thank you very much. No thank you. Be careful in the future. The accountant waved off the guest. Gretel rushed to the table and raced against time to draw the X-ray image he had just seen. The anatomy of a magic apprentice's ankle is no different from that of a normal person. This treatment center is a product of the cooperation between the Magic Council and the Order of the God of Nature. The council provides land, a house, a monthly salary of 500 gold coins, and 50 gold coins for medicine costs. The Order of the God of Nature provides a level 5 priest, as well as 2 or 3 low-level priests and priest apprentices, who take turns attending clinics here. The urban poor will not be charged for treatment, but will be given medical advice and pharmaceutical help. If the magic spells have not been used up today and the priests are in a good mood, they can also throw in a few magic spells. The middle class, such as small traders, shop assistants, and craftsmen, provide medical advice, sell medicines at low prices, and provide certain discounts for magical treatments. People like rich businessmen who have money but don't have extraordinary power, I'm sorry, please pay. Or would you be better off volunteering? After sending away a group of patients, the treatment center became temporarily quiet. Pastor Matthew came down from upstairs and said with a smile, "It's quite clean, Gretel, can you tell me more about the echo detection spell?" "Yeah, I don't understand it either. I always feel blurry when I see things." The two priests sitting on the first floor put down their pens and gathered around him. The priest apprentice in the corner hadn't learned this spell yet, so he had to shrink his neck and try to pretend it didn't exist. Pastor Matthew saw him at a glance and shouted, "Cohen, don't be in a daze, go and bring that rabbit over dash." "Master priest, it hurts so much dash." "Ouch, ouch, ouch, ouch," a fat man climbed up on the doorstep. He is only a little over 5 feet tall, but his waist must be over 3 feet. He leaned on crutches and held his lower abdomen as he climbed up step by step. The hard beechwood crutches were almost crushed into an arc by him. The fat man was wearing a shiny velvet vest, half yellow but not brown. The silver buttons on his belly were about to fall apart, but he still worked hard to fasten them one by one. His upper body was serious, but underneath he only wore a pair of baggy shorts. His feet were bare, wearing a pair of soft cloth slippers, and his big toes were swollen and shiny. As soon as he came in, he ran to Pastor Matthew in a familiar way. "Priest, every time I come to you for treatment, I can't get it cured." "Ouch, you're having another attack." Pastor Matthew seemed to be quite familiar with him. He looked over and immediately said with a smile, "Delay the pain, a level 2 magic. If I take action, I can relieve your pain for 10 hours. Remove the disease, a level 3 magic. You can choose any one." The fat man sat down at the table, one hand tightly covering his lower abdomen, his right foot dangling in the air, not daring to touch the ground at all. The other hand held the money bag cherishingly, pinching the dirty handprints on it and overlapping the handprints. After struggling for a while, he finally stood up shivering. "Master priest, I'm going to relieve myself first." "Okay, please come inside." Pastor Matthew called the apprentice and helped the fat man in. The toilet door was closed for a long time, but the sound of water did not follow. Instead, the fat man howled, "Master priest, I can't do it, the pain is getting worse and worse, and I can't urinate, please give me a way to delay the pain." White light flashes. The pain-relieving magic fell. The fat man's wailing stopped briefly and started again. "No. The pain in my big toe is gone, but I still can't urinate. Master priest, will your magic work?" He walked out of the toilet angrily, holding the crutches and walking away, still limping slightly. Gretel glanced at his toes, Oricles, and then at the other person's bulging belly. He immediately stood up and stood in front of the fat man. "Sir, please wait a moment and let me take a look at it. In your case, I'm afraid it's not just pain relief. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right?" Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 186. You. The fat man narrowed his eyes. On his plump round face, the cheeks were already spilling out to both sides, almost hanging down. If it were a blue cat, the cheeks would be very hairy. When he narrowed his eyes, the eyes became smaller and smaller, and only 2 rays of light shot out from between the eyelids. "Can you?" He looked Gretel up and down. In terms of age, the boy's body is not as tall as an adult man's, and his face is immature. At first glance, he looks only 15 or 67 years old. In terms of level, there are only 2 green leaves embroidered on the priest's robe, unlike Pastor Matthew, who has been promoted to 5 levels after all. In terms of accent, Gretel's tone of voice is a bit hard, not as soft and gentle as Nevis's. It sounds like an outsider. His suspicious look was so obvious that Pastor Matthew coughed and wanted to endorse Greet. Before he could speak, the fat man snorted and turned to look at him. "Master Pastor, I come to you every time I feel pain, and you charge me a sum of money every time. Why do you keep treating me so many times, but you still can't get it cured, and it always hurts after a while?" Matthew's face darkened. "Of course there are many reasons why it can't be cured, such as this damn fat man's unwillingness to spend money." He couldn't help but sprayed back. "You were unwilling to use magic before and were only willing to take medicine. Of course it won't be easy. You can't heal without magic." The fat man struggled to open his eyes. Pastor Matthew was a little angry, but next to him, Gretel couldn't help but laugh. This sentence pattern is so familiar. You won't see a doctor without an examination. You won't see a doctor without taking a X-ray. No. You won't see a doctor if you don't. On average, every doctor hears this at least 10 to 8 times a day, and the entire emergency department 100 or so times a day is considered a small amount. Sometimes, I have to step on the next door department with me. In the past, capable old Chinese medicine doctors could cure the disease with just a few consultations, you guys. At this time, the doctors in the Western medicine department can only smile bitterly with their Chinese medicine colleagues who write a bunch of checklists and are despised by the patients. It's not that you won't see a doctor without an examination. It's that only with an examination can you see a doctor more accurately. For example, if the man in front of me doesn't prescribe a few check UPS, I don't know how high your uric acid is, whether crystals are deposited in your joints, whether you have high blood pressure, hyperlipidemia, diabetes, arteriosclerosis, coronary heart disease and other common complications. However, it is generally possible to simply determine the symptoms. Greet took a step forward with a smile. "Sir, may I ask if your right big toe is not only red and painful, but also hot?" "Yes." "Did you suddenly feel severe pain in the middle of the night or early in the morning?" "Yes, yes, how do you know?" "Did you eat delicious food last night?" "A lot of seafood, and drank strong alcohol." Greet sniffed and smelled a smell of cigarette smoke. "You also smoked, right?" The fat man nodded like he was pounding garlic. Greet continued to step forward, walked half a circle around him with his hands behind his back, and turned his head to look at his ear. Sure enough, he saw more than one nodule. "Isn't it that every time the pain is severe, you have eaten a lot of delicious food, or after drinking too much?" When he said this, the face of the fat man opposite changed drastically, and oil and sweat rolled down his round face. The two calves with a circumference of more than a foot were trembling. Just looking at the extent, some people would believe that they were hams hanging from the roof beams. He pounced forward, and if Gretel hadn't been on guard, he would have almost hugged his thigh. Lord Priest, you have to save me. Alas, I should have told you earlier." Greet hooked her fingers and motioned for Bernard to drag him up and put him on the treatment bed. "Don't move, let me take a look at your situation, Mom." Tisk tisk, the first metatarsophalangeal joint of the right foot is red and swollen, the ankle joint is red and swollen, and the knee joint is deformed. The finger joints also look wrong. The auricle joints and the olecranon bursa at the right elbow have nodules under the swelling and the skin is thin, rich blood supply. I twisted it casually, and it actually felt like I was twisting sand. Even if uric acid is not measured and no polarized light microscope is used for microscopic examination, the cause can basically be determined. In fact, based on his past life experience, Gretel knew at a glance, this thing is gout. Drinking, eating seafood, eating a lot of fish and meat, being obese, smoking, you have made yourself like this. As for how to treat it? Allopurinol, probenecid, benzbromaron, febuxostat, or indomethacin, eticaxib. Greed took inventory and found that the only thing he could get now was colchicine, not colchicine tablets, but colchicine. In this world, it seems that digging a few colchicum trees to soak in water can still be done. Owned. Wait, what is the lethal dose of colchicine? Can one colchicine bulb, or 1 gram of colchicum bulb, contain the amount of colchicine it needs to be effective? Will it poison people to death? There is no antidote for this thing. We can only support treatment, blood purification, and wait for the person to recover and survive. Gretel is not sure whether this alien detoxification technique can be used. Greet's mind was spinning with ideas, searching for information, papers, and fragments of words he had seen in his previous life. He has seen a few cases of colchicine poisoning, and there was no need for him to rescue them. That was the job of the emergency medicine department. He really needed to recall how many active ingredients there were in colchicine. But the fat man still pulled his arm hard and howled loudly. "Master Priest, help me, I'm about to suffocate to death." Yeah, lie down and don't move." With a wink, Gretel asked Bernard to hold him down and pull the bed curtains smoothly. "Bend your legs. Bend them. Pull your pants down a little, let me touch them, don't pull so much. Tisk, this belly is as fat as that of the woman who had a distended abdomen a few days ago. The fat on the abdominal wall is so thick that I can't see clearly what's going on, I can only feel it. Wow, my bladder is so swollen." As soon as he put his hand on it, Greet nodded secretly. Basically it was confirmed. He remained calm, and followed the diagnostic procedure, first touching, then pushing, and then pressing down. It felt like a water bag and could not be moved. With a little force of his palm, the fat man started to scream. "It's so hot. It's so hot that it kills me. Can't pull it out." That's right. That's right, it hurts." "When did it first hurt?" "Today. Today, this morning." "Okay, urinary retention, urethral stones." Considering the gout attack, it's more likely that the bladder stones rolled in and got stuck, or the urethral stones that were there before just got bigger. As for what type of stone it is, please turn aside and let me use my magic to take a look." X-ray magic, turn on. Tisk, can't see it? It seems like no one guessed everything correctly today, ha ha ha. Group number 649136249, everyone is welcome to chat. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews. The follow-up orders finally came back to 10, which scared me to death. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 187. Chapter 187, Don't listen to the doctor. Look, are you down? X-ray, no, maybe it's detection magic based on the same principle as X-ray. Can't you see the stones? Greet shrugged, as expected. Stones are inherently divided into X-ray positive stones and X-ray negative stones. The former cannot transmit X-rays, and therefore can be seen under X-rays, while the latter is just the opposite. For example, pure uric acid stones, which are common in gout, are invisible under X-rays. Fortunately, I have newly developed B ultrasound magic. Greet took his time and asked the fat man to put down his legs and lie flat, then stood up and brought in glycerin. Then, "Whoa, don't touch me." "Shut up. You think I want to touch you? Put your hands down." Greet scolded with sweat drops. "Hey, it's not easy for my colleagues in the imaging department, it's really not easy. Day by day, we encounter many disobedient patients. And you have to treat them with a smile, otherwise the patient will complain, the medical department will investigate, and the money will be deducted on the spot." Try yelling "Shut up, do you think I want to touch you" to the patient? Try the wallet and die. The fat man was violently suppressed by the barbarians, pinned to the bed and unable to move. Greet sighed, used magic trick to draw a picture on the board beside the bed, and explained to him softly. You can't urinate. My initial suspicion is that here change the color and add a thick ink dot, there is something stuck. Where is it stuck and how big is the stuck thing? I have to use magic to see it's clear now. You don't want me to just cut it open and get that thing without looking at it, right? Check, cut, cut, cut. The fat man trembled all over and became weak. Master priest, you can't cut it open. This is my lifeblood. Why don't we just use divine magic? Don't use the knife. If you keep moving around and I can't see anything clearly, I'll have no choice but to use the knife. Don't worry, the magic is here and I will definitely take care of it for you. Gretel sighed. The fat man lay down at the speed of light, shivering. Well, after just this move, the ultrasound image that I could see clearly disappeared again, and I had to cast the spell again. Fortunately, it is a spell engraved in the core of meditation, which can eliminate the need for casting materials, otherwise you would have to ask him for bat money. Greet scanned it carefully, centimeter by centimeter. Tisk, this bladder is full, more than 1000 ml, right? If it's this big, it's probably hydronephrosis. Well, it sure is. You need to take another look after the catheterization. If it disappears after urination, it's okay. If there is still hydronephrosis after urination, the kidney needs to be treated. There are still uric acid stones in the kidney. But not much. I will remind him to drink more water later. Looking further down, the bladder is fine, and the internal urethral opening below, sure enough, there are more than one stone stuck. The largest one is irregular in shape, and this size, wow, this is almost 1 centimeter. It takes a lot of effort to break such a big stone. Brother Matthew, come here and help. Gretel shouted through the curtain. The fat man tried to stop him in a hurry. Master Pastor, you can just treat me. Why do you need to invite Pastor Matthew to come over? I can't do two things by casting spells alone. While he was talking, Pastor Matthew had already opened the curtain and came in. He advanced to the 5th level of priest, which was regarded as a big step forward, and he was full of high spirits. However, when facing Gretel, he was still the same gentle person. When he came in, he smiled and asked, Little Greet, what's the matter? What do you need my help with? Brother Matthew, help spawn a vine, insert it from that place. Gretel told him his request with gesticulations. It should be smooth and soft, and it should not feel rough at all when rubbed inside the lips. The thickness of the outer wall and inner wall should be uniform, the head should be rounded, and there should be symmetrical openings on both sides near the head. If possible, after the top is pushed up, it is best to change the shape of the round head, grab the stone, and continue to push up. So it's just a stone, right? Pastor Matthew listened for a long time and couldn't help but wonder when faced with Gretel's various complicated requests. Isn't there a mage's hand? Just move it away. Yes. Move it away, the fat man nodded hard. Although I don't know why priests know the magic hand, but the priests of the Church of the God of Nature often know some magic. But mage's hand is a level 0 trick. Save money. As long as 5 gold coins, the plant growth technique is at least a level 1 magical technique, inside and outside, the difference is 10 times. We can't move away now. Greet shook his head quickly. In order to express his firm refusal, he even jumped a step to the side and put his hands behind his back. He is holding back his urine too hard. Once the stone is removed, he may collapse on the spot or have hematuria. He can only have intermittent catheterization. So it's just possible, right? The fat man suddenly became energetic. Move away. Move away immediately. Please, Pastor. I don't want the vines to stab my stomach. His voice was hoarse. With such a fat belly and such a thick chest, he actually made a low-end version of the dolphin sound. If Bernard hadn't pressed hard, he would have rolled off the examination bed and rolled on Pastor Matthew's thigh. Greet sighed, still patiently persuading. You really can't do this, something will really go wrong. I'm responsible for anything that goes wrong. Then I won't help you move the stone, knowing that the treatment plan is not feasible, insisting on implementing it, is against my treatment principles. Then. The fat man hesitated, I'm looking for Pastor Matthew. Greet turned around. Pastor Matthew looked a little embarrassed, but he still nodded slightly, indicating that he could take action. Greet shrugged and spread his hands to the fat man. I've told you all the risks. I know. Gretel nodded and turned around to go out. Good words can never dissuade the damned ghosts. Every year, there are a group of patients in the emergency department who insist on being discharged when they should not be discharged. They are allowed to be examined without examination. Anyway, hypotension and collapse won't be particularly serious. Is it hematuria? I'll be back with another treatment. He opened the curtain and walked to his seat. After walking a few steps, the ground behind him shook, but the stone in Fatty's body was removed and he flew out. There was a splashing sound in the toilet. Greet stood there and thought about it for a while. After all, he softened his heart and waved to Bernard. Go to the bathroom and take a look. If he faints, pick him up to prevent anyone from falling. Why? The barbarian responded angrily. He was tall and long-legged, and he could take 2 steps as fast as Gretel. He rushed over like a Gundam. I only stood at the door of the toilet for half a minute when I heard the sound of water inside stop, followed by a gurgling sound. After a moment, the barbarian stepped out carrying an unconscious fat man. The fat man was dripping wet from his trousers to the lower half of his velvet vest. It was obvious that he fell to the ground. If Bernard entered a second too late, he would have suffered a concussion. If you don't listen to the doctor's advice, you will face hardship. Look, it's fallen. Gretel spread his hands. Pastor Matthew's face turned red and he poked him. Sorry, I will definitely listen to you next time. Thanks to at Psychos Iao Chanayu and at Yemengbing for the 1,500 starting coins. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, please recommend votes. Asking for a book review. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 188. You are no longer allowed to drink alcohol in the future. You are not allowed to drink strong alcohol, especially beer. If you are really greedy, you can have a small glass of wine a day. The fat man's blood pressure returned to normal. After slowly waking up, he no longer dared to question Gretel's words. Greet carried him and explained the precautions one by one, and he kept nodding and bending down to listen, with the fat on his belly getting wrinkled. Yes, yes, yes. Stop eating sea fish and shrimp. Eat less oysters, raw oysters, and all shells. What, we live by the sea, we don't eat sea fish and shrimps, okay, okay, yes, yes, yes. Eat less beef and mutton too. Then, Pastor, what can I eat? You can eat chicken, duck, and pork. Foie gras is not allowed. Forget it, don't eat all animal offal. The fat man rubbed his belly sadly. Greet scared him with a straight face. Your disease is caused by food. Even if I give you a cure to remove the disease today, if you continue to eat and drink a lot for a few days, the harmful things in the food will accumulate in your body, and you will still feel pain. I see the stone in your belly now. By then, there will be stones everywhere in your kidneys and bladder, and going to the toilet will hurt like a knife. The muscles on the fat man's face trembled. It's not painful, it's just a pity for the money. So far today, although the money spent is high, it is still bearable. 1 to delay pain, level 2 magic, 2 Magic Detection, Level 0 Magic, a Mage's Hand, Level 0 Magic, 1 to treat minor injuries, Level 0 Magic. Greed took the photo to prevent urination after stone removal, road infection, the total amount is less than 1000 gold coins. Removable Disease is a Level 3 Magic, which costs thousands of gold coins to start with. He transported a shipment of goods from the mainland to Nevis, and it was calm. He didn't lose anything at all, and he only made a few thousand gold coins. This happens once, and the trip is wasted. And it can't be completely cured. If I eat it for a few more days, I will still have an attack. Then, how can we cure it completely? If you want 2, 3, even 4. The fat man gritted his teeth and smashed down 4 of them in one breath to remove the disease. If the disease could be cured, he would pay for it. You can't eat this, you can't eat that. It's simply not a human life. Modern medicine can't completely cure this kind of thing. Greed touched his chin. Before he traveled through time, the academic community was still not very clear about the cause and pathogenesis of gout. The treatment method is to advocate diet control, reduce uric acid, reduce inflammation, relieve pain, and if necessary, surgically remove tophi. As for a cure, the Level 6 medical skill claims to be able to get rid of all diseases and injuries, but I don't know if it is effective. If that doesn't work, you should try something like the Great Wishing technique. The other person was still staring at him eagerly. Gretel thought for a moment and started talking nonsense. You get this disease because there are too many harmful things in your blood. It should be possible to purify all the blood, filter out these things and then reinfuse it into the body. But how to purify it and how to protect you after the blood is released? I don't know about his life. There is a saying, dialysis, or something like that is indeed good for lowering uric acid. As for going too far, clinically speaking, it's usually not that serious. Well, since his liver can't produce a dialysis machine here, he can just get high. Greet shrugged. The fat man's fat face turned white and blue, then blue and yellow, and cold sweat broke out. He bent down again and hurriedly wanted to leave, but Gretel stopped him. Why be anxious? I haven't finished speaking yet. Remember to drink at least 4 glasses of water every day, exercise moderately, but don't be too tired, eat more fruits and vegetables, by the way, don't eat asparagus. Then what else can I eat? The fat man howled miserably. Gretel folded his arms, unmoved. He has seen many such people. If you agree well in person, you will indeed avoid it for 2 days, and you will forget about it in a week at most, then, it can take as little as a month, as long as half a year, and then you will rush to the hospital and call the doctor for help. Fortunately, for diseases like gout, emergency surgery is probably not something you need to worry about. In addition to having a headache when seeing high uric acid levels during surgery, I also heard complaints from colleagues in the department next door. That old patient is here again. After explaining the precautions, giving the medicine, and explaining how many times a day and how many pills to take at a time, Greed waved his hand and let him go. The fat man cherished a small box of white pills. He bent slightly, arched his neck, and walked forward like he was holding a pearl. When he reached the door, he suddenly turned back. Master Priest, you are so awesome. You are right in everything you say. I have several friends who are like me, and I asked them all to come to you. Gretel. Is it all gout? I don't know how to relieve pain. I haven't mastered ultrasonic lithotripsy yet. The accuracy is very limited. Even if I inserted a urinary catheter, I couldn't find a suitable vine. I later asked Brother Matthew for help. If you introduce me to a lot of gout patients, what I can do to help them is really limited. Gretel returned to his seat filled with anxiety. Pastor Matthew was standing beside his table. Before he could speak, Greed rushed forward and grabbed him. What medicine did you give him? Colchicum powder, add some starch, add honey, knead into a ball dash. Powder? Just powder? How much powder is added to how much starch? Is it mixed evenly? How is it mixed in? Shake, mix well. Greet rubbed his forehead. Colchicum, brother, that thing is poisonous. Just shake it and mix it well. What if there is more and less somewhere? This is not a pancake. If you don't sprinkle the salt evenly, you can only eat one salty bite. This will kill you. Also, even if the colchicum powder is really mixed, does the colchicine content of colchicum powder from different plants and different parts have the same amount? Even if you think about it, it's impossible. What if you are unlucky and happen to hit a part with a high content, and happen to hit the powder without mixing it evenly? If you eat one pill, it will be 10 or 20 times the average amount. Don't look at the beauty of the painting. Greet pouted. It's okay if you didn't notice it before. If you notice it, you can't just ignore it. He raised his head and glanced above the floor. Brother Matthew, is there colchicum powder in the alchemy room? Can I use it? Yes. It's on the second floor. You can use it if you want. Okay. Gretel ran up. He had searched through his memory before and actually found several papers on measuring the content of colchicine in medicinal materials. In short, based on dry weight, the average content is approximately 0.3%. That's easy, I'll do it myself. Gretel rolled up his sleeves and worked hard. Same thing, set up a balance, a test tube, a square beaker. 1 gram of colchicine powder contains 0.3 milligrams of colchicine. The usual dosage for adults is 0.5 to 1 milligram every 1 to 2 hours, no more than 6 milligrams per day. 6 divided by 0.3 equals 20, then, just dispense the medicine. Weigh out 20 grams of colchicum powder, divide it into 5 equal portions, place them in an Erlenmeyer flask, and add 100 ml of alcohol to each portion. Fix it on the vibrating stand and vibrate vigorously for 15 minutes. Greet shook the vibrating stand so hard that his hand almost broke, and he strongly doubted that he could not reach the vibrating frequency. But what the heck, that's it? Filter, let stand, and then add evaporated alcohol to obtain crude colchicine extract. I don't care if there are any strange things in it. In short, add a little water to dissolve the crude extract, weigh 12 grams of starch, and mix the dough with water. Knead and knead, knead into dough, roll into long strips, cut into 12 parts, perfect. Each pill contains 0.5 milligrams, and this batch is enough for 1 day. Maybe the content is not particularly uniform, but it is definitely much more uniform than the medicinal powder mixed directly into the balls. Next time you have the conditions, remember to measure the content. Well, how do you get a UV spectrophotometer? Gretel shook off the long-term goal, put away the pills with satisfaction, and found a small bottle to put them in. I wanted to find a rabbit or something to try, but I heard someone shouting from below. Master Priest, I'm introducing a patient to you. No. Coming so soon? Thanks to Mugulf99 for the 100 starting coins. Please collect, recommend, and review books. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 189. Chapter 189 School Recruitment Seminar, Climb to the Headquarters. Greet's situation in the treatment center opened up smoothly. Except for the poor people who came here sporadically and had no economic benefit except accumulating cases, Fatty really brought a group of wealthy patients to Gretel. Well, it should be said that it was a group of his fellow patients. It is conceivable that if Greet can deal with this group of patients, Greet's share this month will be a very beautiful figure. The colleagues at the treatment center were happy for him. Greet was on tenterhooks, fearing that it was all an acute attack of gout. After all, there was no titration measurement or UV spectrophotometer. The colchicine tablets he threw out might not contain accurate amounts. However, what reassured and troubled Greet was that the 7 or 8 middle-aged and elderly men brought by the fat man were all, well, unspeakably hidden. Greet was furious when he saw the doctor. Those old men were also very pretentious. They refused to take off their clothes, take off their belts, move their knees and chest, and even more so the lithotomy position. As for the digital rectal examination, if Greet hadn't been so persuasive and put out the magic badge and told them exactly what their symptoms were, those guys wouldn't have let anyone touch them. But, when he wants to watch him wash his hands once. He was also wasting his gloves and glycerin. When will the paraffin oil come out? And everyone's situation is different. 1 bladder stone, 3 prostatic hyperplasia, different degrees, 1 urethral polyp, 2 urethral tumors. Seeing this, Greet wanted to yell at the fat man, "Do you think they all have the same disease because they appear to be the same?" Gretel was exhausted. X-ray magic, B ultrasound magic, vine into basin, surgery, all kinds of methods are used. After finally getting rid of these people, it was already the end of February, and the warm-up activities for recruiting people in major mage towers and magic organizations had begun. The first item is a visit to the Magic Council headquarters, the mage towers on the top of the mountain. Early in the morning, 60 or 70 students from the training class lined up in single file and set foot on the mountain path to reach the top of Igor Peak, above Neva City. There is no magic train to ride on, and no magic mounts are allowed to be summoned. The only equipment they have is a backpack for each person, and a wooden stick used as a trekking pole for each person. Gretel wrapped the top of the oak staff with a strip of cloth and calmly blended in, pretending that it was not a staff dedicated to the servants of the god of nature. The teacher leading the team was still explaining to them. Thousands of years ago, the magicians who founded the Magic Council, the great legendary mage Terence, and his friends climbed to Mount Igor along this road. At that time, the clouds opened and the fog dispersed, and the sun fell, and surrounded in the clouds and mist of Igor Peak, the silhouettes of the magicians are projected. This was a vision they had never seen before. From that day on, Lord Terence and his friends built a stone house on the top of the mountain to observe and study these phenomena. Later, they built the first mage tower on the top of the mountain. Hey, so this is a school recruitment briefing? Why did you end up going the same way again? Remembering the bitter and thinking of the sweet? Or is it a ceremony to worship the previous magicians? By the way, has Sir Terence passed away? How do I remember that I am still alive? Does this old man know that you are doing this kind of formalism? What would he think? The students were divided into teams of 10, with one knight taking the lead and one knight finishing each team, a perfect outdoor hiking arrangement for newcomers. It seems that the Magic Council is also afraid that 1 or 2 people will fall to death. Even so, they still want to continue climbing. This is the origin of the Magic Parliament headquarters. From then on, all magicians who go to the Parliament headquarters for the first time will hike up this mountain trail. I'm not. I've already been there once by train. Gretel silently cursed. They started climbing along the base of the mountain. The city of Nevis is relatively far north, and even though it is almost late spring, there are only dots of grass buds sprouting on the hillside, a light green that looks like grass from a distance but is not there up close. Looking up, the peak of Igor Peak is submerged in thick clouds, but the clouds above are thin, and the blue sky can be seen without any obstruction. The condition of the trail at the foot of the mountain ranges between being maintained every now and then and never being maintained at all. Gretel climbed up the gentle slope easily. The first third of the road was mostly dirt with a lot of rocks mixed in. It was not difficult to walk as we climbed higher and higher, the mountain road changed from a dirt road to a gravel trail, and then to a large area of sharp gravel ground. Step by step, the soles of our feet were painful. The meadows and shrubs have completely disappeared. Only the thin snow on the ground has not yet melted. Take one step and slide one step. Gretel peeked around, and saw that most of the magicians in front had already bent down, holding their hiking poles in their right hands and stretching their left hands forward, ready to support themselves if they fell. Two people were secretly discussing behind them. In what month did Mr. Terence and the others go up the mountain? Okay, I think it's winter. Stepping over rocks, stepping on thin snow, and stepping on ice-covered areas that may have been creeks. After lunch, the slope under our feet suddenly became gentle, and some areas were almost flat. The snow is getting deeper and deeper, and gravels of different sizes are piled up to guide them in the direction of progress, and the young mages. We walked into the clouds and snow. Everyone put on their oilcoat. The mage who had learned cold and heat resistance secretly cast spells for himself and his companions. The teachers and knights who led the team clearly saw it and did not stop him. They just kept shouting, "It's very foggy. Follow the people in front. Don't fall behind. There are cliffs everywhere here." Although isolated from the influence of the cold, clouds and rain still hit my face, condensing into water droplets on my face, hair, and collar, and then flowing into my neck. This feeling was very uncomfortable. Gretel wrinkled his nose and wiped his face desperately. He wanted to walk as fast as possible, but he heard a scream in front of him. Wow ah 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 dash. The sound was extremely frightening. Gretel suddenly raised his head and saw a magician in front of him who had deliberately taken a detour in order to get past his companions in front of him. As a result, his foot slipped and he rolled a few times on the snow, and was about to fall down the cliff. At the critical moment, the knight in charge of their team jumped up, grabbed him and threw him inside. The knight himself swayed outward. Fortunately, another knight threw a long rope in time and pulled him back from the edge of the cliff. The magician who was lucky enough to be saved lay on the ground, his face pale, and his hands slipped after holding on twice. Plop, plop, my nose was about to be flattened on the snow. Stand up. Otherwise you'll freeze to the ground. The magician leading the team scolded. The rescued man stood up unsteadily, leaning on his hiking pole, and walked into the team again. After this accident, the magicians were extremely careful when traveling. There were no more people on the road who could even whisper or chat to find out the news. After walking for a while, it was pouring, and it actually started to rain. It's better to go hiking in good weather. Gretel cursed and tried to move forward. Step by step, he stepped through ice and snow, gravel, and clouds. Even with the protection of magic, he felt that his feet were completely numb. It was completely impossible to tell whether it was numbness from the cold or pain from stepping on gravel. How high is this mountain? I remember that the height of Mount Tai is more than 1,500 meters. He started climbing from the Red Gate at the foot of the mountain. When he climbed to the top of the Jade Emperor, it was almost night. Is this mountain as high as Mount Tai? I feel hungry again, it's almost night. As I was walking, my eyes suddenly lit up. Gretel suddenly raised his head. The wind and snow stopped in front of him, and the clouds cleared and the fog dispersed. The sun slanted down from the direction of the bay, illuminating the magic tower standing on the peak. At the foot of the mountain in the distance, a ring of light emerged from the clouds and mist surrounding the peak, surrounded by 7 colors, and the white light in the center was as bright as a mirror. The light surrounds a figure, raising his hands and moving his feet, following him like a shadow. Not far from the edge of the cliff, at least 50 or 60 people raised their arms, waved, and looked at the figures in fascination. The magician who brought them up looked at the excited students and sighed in confusion. The halo has actually appeared, there is going to be a big shot among these children. Ah! Is there also Buddha light here? Greet gave a small wow. As a tourist who has climbed Mount Imei and Mount Wutai, but has never seen the Buddha's light, he felt that this climb was worth the price. Then, he also joined the tour group, gesticulating and having a great time. Thanks to @Mughal for the 100 starting coins. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, please review books. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 190. The founder of the Magic Council, the legendary mage His Excellency Terence, when he climbed to the top of Igor Peak for the first time, he looked around and saw his own figure reflected in the halo of clouds. With the blessing of this legend, anyone who can see the halo when climbing to the top for the first time will definitely achieve great achievements, and it has become a famous legend in the Magic Council. The reason why it is just a legend is because Mr. Terence firmly denies its causal relationship. The magicians of the prophecy school also said that it is just a coincidence. It cannot be concluded that there will definitely be an outstanding person among these summit climbers. Of course, even so, it does not prevent magicians from secretly loving the story, and would rather believe it than believe it. After all, the top of Igor Peak is shrouded in rain clouds all year round. It rains or snows at least 300 days a year, 365 days a year. In the remaining days, the clouds will clear up and the fog will clear up, the sun will shine out, and the halo will be reflected. This person will also be climbing the summit for the first time. It is not easy for so many coincidences to come together. The students in the training class admired the haloed figure on the edge of the cliff for a long time before they were gathered by the magician leading the team and headed towards the mage towers at the top of the mountain. Due to limited time, they did not visit the towers one by one. They just looked outside for a while and were given some guidance by the assistant teacher who led the team. Even so, the 8 auxiliary towers of different shapes also won the praise of the students. After stopping for a moment, a group of people entered the Tower of Babel and went up directly by the elevator. The elevator didn't look big, it could only hold 10 people. A group of 60 or 70 people all got in, but the space was more than enough. Gretel was still looking around for the space magic pattern, and the magic elevator rose from the ground. Soon, exclamations one after another rang in the elevator. Wow! So beautiful! The entire mountain range is at your feet. The clouds are coming, the clouds are coming. Are we walking directly in the clouds? Lightning! Look! There's lightning over there. Whoa, didn't it hit me? We are still going up. The clouds actually went down, it's so golden and beautiful. The height of Babel Tower is higher than the 8 surrounding auxiliary towers, and it is inserted straight into the clouds. When students stand in the magic elevator and lower their head slightly, they can see the sea of clouds rolling under their feet, sometimes rolling, sometimes condensing, and sometimes revealing thin gaps. The sun shines gently on the clouds. All the snow, ice, and rain below seemed as if it had never happened. The students were jostling each other. Greet only glanced at it and then slowly stepped back, leaving the other students to enjoy the wonderful scenery without any hesitation. The scenery in front of him was indeed good, but to him, it was not that rare. There are observation elevators in every big city. You can overlook the entire city at any time, such as the Oriental Pearl Tower or the Little Man Yao. As for the sea of clouds, choose a seat next to you when flying, and remember to wear sunscreen. In contrast, it was the fact that the magic technology in this world could reach such a high level that made him more curious. If we can enter the core scientific research institutions of the Parliament, maybe CT and MRI can be developed earlier? His expression was dull, neither surprised nor excited, but the magician leading the team looked at him more. On the 15th floor of the Tower of Babel, among the magicians observing them through the illusion circle, some people pointed at his image and asked, "Who is this student?" The person who asked was a 5th-level magician. As soon as he opened his mouth, a low-level mage quickly checked and compared the information and gave the answer. Gret Nordmark, a first-level arcanist, a first-level mage. Oh, the information has just been updated, it is already a second-level one. From Neuster County, Heartland City Mage Tower, the school is undecided, and the direct mentor is undecided. Come from a small place, a soft male voice from the side interrupted. It doesn't look like you are not surprised at all. He published an article Arcana last month and was summoned by the review committee to come to the summit. The third mage laughed eerily. And this kid has participated in a war before. He killed a 9th level knight alone. He came here on Master Carlyle's airship. The implication is that there is no problem with such knowledge, no problem with his background, and no problem with it on the battlefield. So familiar, you want him in Crowmarsh. He is a born necromancer. That arcane was published in the necromancy school, in the direction of plague. But how come I heard that he is a healer? Another crisp female voice took over. I went to the teacher's place the day before yesterday and heard that someone in the conjuration department is interested in him. Master Carlyle also asked a few days ago. Magicians from various schools and organizations were chatting happily, some were complaining, some were quarreling, and some were trying to disagree. As for Greet, the magic elevator finally shook slightly and stopped moving upward. The assistant coach leading the team pressed the elevator door and raised his voice. After getting out of the elevator, everyone tried to make as little noise as possible. From this floor up, there are floors occupied by the light of the stars. Their daily routine is day and night, and they have particularly high requirements for silence. I don't think you are willing to disturb a certain master and be cursed by them, and you will be unlucky for the rest of your life. The students remained silent and nodded vigorously. Gretel couldn't help but wonder, Starlight. Which school of thought is this? In the astronomical direction? His curiosity was soon answered. The students filed out of the elevator and climbed up 3 floors. Then, the first student who stepped into the hall couldn't help but sigh. Ah! As soon as the sound came out, he immediately covered his mouth with all his strength. The people behind him followed suit. Greet walked into the hall with his mouth covered. When he raised his head, his eyes immediately widened. It was clearly daytime. It was clear that the sun was shining brightly just a moment ago. However, what comes into view is a dark black dome, like a giant bowl, which is upside down from directly above the head. Countless stars were shining brightly on the sky. Greet turned around and actually found the Big Dipper. The handle of the dipper pointed east, slightly to the south. Is this thing real-time? It's not decoration drawing, but real-time display. How do they show the stars in broad daylight? Greet stretched his neck, quite curious. Under the dome, there is a pipe more than 3 feet high and as thick as an arm's length, mounted on a movable brass stand, which looks a bit like an astronomical telescope. Greet leaned over to take a look curiously, but there was no glass lens in sight. There were layers upon layers of magic circles in the tube. This is for observing the starry sky at night. Seeing him bend down and close his eyes, the assistant did not stop him. Instead, he took a few steps closer and explained to him. This dome will be opened at night, and you can directly see the starry sky through the stargazing tube. This stargazing tube is filled with various magic circles such as focusing, amplifying, and positioning. People from the conjuration school helped arrange it. It is very delicate. Oh, it turns out to be a variant of an astronomical telescope. Gretel's interest was instantly extinguished. Looking at the design of this hall, could the Light of the Stars be an organization of the prophecy school? Forgive him for not understanding astronomy and not liking divination. Just take a look at this kind of thing. But we can think of ways to make these magic arrays. Can we make an astronomical telescope? If we reverse the magic circle, maybe we can make a microscope? A high-power microscope? Polarized light microscope, electron microscope, cryo-electron microscope, etc. The microscope he used to remove his own liver had a measly 1000 times magnification. Greet took a few steps back and quietly stepped aside. There was a snapping sound next to him, and someone floated over like a wandering spirit. When he turned his face and looked around, he happened to be someone he knew, the Master Miles, who caught a goose and took a bite of it when we had dinner together last time. Gretel stretched out his hand to pull, but was stopped. Let him go. His mentor is from the prophecy school. But it was Master Anthony, the first person in the training class to advance to level 2. They were not in the same team when climbing the mountain before, but now they came together to chat. Greet retracted his hand as he was told, and saw Master Miles tilting his head as hard as he could, bending his neck back to almost 90 degrees, and drifting towards the center of the hall step by step. Halfway through the float, I stumbled somewhere and fell on my back. Miles didn't seem to notice anything. He lay flat on the ground and looked up at the stars in a daze. The assistant coach ignored him. Seeing that most people saw the same thing, he led a large group of people downstairs. As for those who are still lying on the ground or lingering around, it's okay. If you want him in the Mage Tower, you need him. If you don't want him, people will be knocked down naturally. Such a big Babel Tower, and there are tower spirits watching over it, nothing will happen. Master Anthony said softly. Greet was awe-inspiring, knowing that no one would drag him away here, so he secretly made a note: don't be too obsessed with just watching the display of one school of thought and missing out on several other schools of thought. It will be a big loss. They returned to the elevator and descended a short distance before the elevator door opened again. This time, the assistant coach leading the team looked around and smiled half-heartedly. This time, everyone can shout as loudly as possible. Anyway, the isolation inside is good, so I can't hear your voices. How to insulate the sound? Double-glazed glass. Vacuum inside? Greet was curious. He followed the team and passed through 2 dark black doors with countless thunder lights flowing above them. Suddenly his eyes lit up. Greet closed his eyes reflexively, and stretched out his hand to cover his face. Too bright? It's so bright? A 1000-watt high-pressure sodium lamp is not that bright, and the solder flowers are not that dazzling when you look directly at them. Be very careful later, never look straight ahead again. Greet had tears in her eyes, desperately complaining that she was too careless. It took him a while to recover, and he slowly opened his eyes, and was immediately attracted to her again. Ahead was a wonder he had never seen before. 12 pillars stand in a ring shape, and the light between the pillars is crisscrossed, forming a network of light. What's even more astonishing is that in the light network, a bowl-sized thunder light rushes back and forth, exploding continuously. Every time the pillar is touched, a ripple is caused on the light network. This is the core of the Thunder Corner, the assistant coach who led the way explained again. The Tower of Babel is inserted into the clouds, and the lightning in the rain clouds continuously strikes the tower, and is introduced into the interior of the Tower of Babel, becoming the energy reserve of the Mage Tower. What you see is the process of constraining lightning with a field and converting it into energy. What is this? Force field? What is the principle? Greet trembled all over and pushed forward desperately. With a snap, he leaned down onto the transparent glass wall, pressing the tip of his nose tightly against the glass. Something that can restrain lightning and convert electricity. What exactly is this? Electricity? Magnetic. Tokamak. Using magnetic confinement to achieve controllable nuclear fusion? Has the power of the Magic Council reached this point? If controllable nuclear fusion can be achieved, is nuclear fission also possible? What about NMR? MRI? Gamma knife? Oh, and there's electricity. Electricity. With electricity, there is ECG monitoring. AMD. All kinds of medical equipment require electricity to drive. We must find a way to get this. Countless thoughts were whizzing back and forth in Gretel's mind. The team moved slowly along the glass wall. Gret lay on the glass wall, stepping forward step by step. After passing half of the hall, the assistant coach leading the team couldn't bear it anymore and raised his voice and shouted. Gret Nordmark. Ah, ah. Are you going to clean the glass with your nose? Gret's face turned red. Turning his head to look where he came from, he saw that there was indeed a long mark on the glass wall. It was a bit blurry and a bit greasy, it was indeed caused by his nose. It happens all the time in museums, when a new exhibition opens and everyone wipes the glass with their faces. However, he is the only one here to do this, which is too conspicuous. It's too late to use the mage's tricks to clean it up now. Gretel took 2 steps back and fell to the end of the team. While moving forward, he still stared at the force field reluctantly. How to get it? The mages on the 15th floor of Babel Tower are busy again. In the star dome above, there are only a few magicians who show obvious love and inclination. However, in the Thunder Hall of the Evocation School, at least half of the students turn around every step of the way and wish they could live here. The magicians of Thunderhorn are busy identifying and remembering people, looking through information to determine priorities. The guy with yellow hair, the first one to break through level 2, by the way, his name is Anthony Valentine, showed obvious interest. Pay close attention. That red-haired girl also likes the School of Plasticity? Let's see, 1C and 1B dash. Forget it, I guess it won't be her turn. Who is that person walking on the glass? Mystic eyes, change the direction. Oh, Gret Nordmark, it's him again. Okay, let's pay attention to this one article arcane, if you can get enough, the highest priority that sequence. Wait, that arcane is from the Necronomicon faction. After walking through the Thunder Hall, the group returned to the elevator and went down again. The decoration of the floor that I entered this time has changed again. In the deep black walls, there are ripples that are constantly rolling. At first glance, there are dots of stars, but if you look closely, you can see that there are countless mantras rising and falling here and there, circulating endlessly. Entering the hall, countless light curtains connect with each other, reflecting the scene outside the Tower of Babel. At first glance, it is almost suspicious that all the walls of Babel Tower have become transparent. Secret Eye, the assistant teacher, stepped aside, allowing the students to watch 360 degrees without hindrance, and gave instructions and explanations by the way. The Conjuration School is responsible for the maintenance of Igor's mystery lock. What you see is part of the surveillance hall. Countless arcane eyes are connected together. Through the magic circle provided by the Illusion School, people can directly observe the external scene. Nord Mr. Mark, what are you doing again? Secret Eye? This is what I want to. Gret lay down for the second time. Tonight is a 4,000-word chapter, including a 10,000-word bonus. I finally paid off my debt and felt comfortable. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, and ask for book reviews.